Welcome to Around Kitsap. This is the BCAT show where we go in depth on a topic that's important to all of Kitsap County. Joining me today is Marcus Hoffman. Marcus is a Silverdale Water Commissioner, and he is also a broker for Reed Real Estate. But Marcus is here today to talk to us about Silverdale Incorporation. That is the topic that's important to all of Kitsap County. Welcome to the show, Marcus.
Welcome. I'm enjoying it. It'll be a fun project to talk about the Incorporation of Silverdale.
That's right. So Marcus, let's talk about a little history. Tell us how often citizens have tried to do the incorporation in Silverdale.
The effort's been tried a couple of times. I think it was back in the late 40s. I think it was, again, tried in the late 60s or 70s. And then they tried it 2 times in about a 10-year window, I believe in 1988 and 1998. The last time it was on the ballot, I think it's the first time out, it's failed by like 7 votes. So it's
7?
Yeah. And then really? they had some goof up with the districts and the voters that were given ballots and the ones that weren't given ballots, and then it failed the recount.
I think the topic has really always been kind of bubbling right under the surface. Many folks are really interested in having Silverdale be its own city. Other people say, well, they've tried it and it's not worked, so why do they keep asking? So,
well, the thing is, we're already paying the taxes. The problem is we don't have any direct control over our future. And the community needs to have its own voice and its own future. Right now what's happening is those people that are voting on Silverdale issues, 93% of them don't live in Silverdale. Because the county commissioners are elected countywide, so it simply means that Silverdale doesn't have a voice. And, all the other cities, we need to be on par with the other cities. And since we're generating the taxes locally, we'd like them spent locally.
Well, that's a very good idea. What is your role? Are you on the committee?
I am. I'm actually the designated spokesman, so I get to sit on the hot seat with you every once in a while.
And the group is called Citizens United for Silverdale. The website is the email address unitesilverdale@gmail.com. The website silverdaleinc.com. So if you want some information, you can go right there.
Sure, and they can go to Incorporate Silverdale for a Facebook link also. So again, a couple of different ways. And we don't have full-time staff, so we don't have a phone number to be able to call. But if people need to get a hold of me, they can call me, obviously. Our group is made up of 10 people. Myself, Hankman Sykes, as a community activist. Mary Earl, again, somebody that's very active. And she serves on the Central Kitsap Community Council. Randy Biggenwall, a CPA in Old Town. Lynn Hughes runs a mail service. Rob McDermott, a local attorney. Bud Aiken runs a print shop. Jennifer Forbes is a local attorney. And Carl Johnson, who's been in the CK School District for many years, and Randy Billick, who I think is the assistant chief at Central Kitsap Fire and Rescue. So that's our kind of core group of 10. We have a few more people that help out, and we have met for probably about a year and a half. Done a lot of studies about the issues, and we're now in the signature gathering stage. So I guess this is going to air sometime in December. So we should be pretty much wrapped up with our signature gathering by then.
The signature gathering, let's explain that to the folks. Signature gathering gives you the authorization then to put it on the ballot for spring.
Correct.
The spring would be February? March,
Oh no,
April?
It'll be more like April, May.
Okay.
So sometime late spring is probably, because it'll take 6 months of a lot of dialogue and presentations to, bring that information to the people so they can make good decisions. Because if people don't know, they'll vote no. So we're going to have to answer a lot of questions between now and elections.
Good, and that's exactly why I invited Marcus to come into the BCAT studio, just for information. We are not telling you yes or no. We are giving you information. So let's start with that information.
Great.
So
okay,
go ahead.
Let me give some foundation, because I think if we don't explain some of the basics, then people get lost. And so what we can do is the cue to flip to the next chart. And I've got a little PowerPoint thing. There's three levels of government. There's federal, state, and local. We're all pretty much aware of some of the departments at the federal level. Obviously, some in the state you might be aware of, and I've mentioned a couple here. Really, obviously, we're focused on the local level. And I've mentioned 4 local forms of government that are at the local level. We have cities, counties, public utility districts, and water and sewer districts. Now, the reason I selected these 4 to talk about local governance is because all 4 of these provide utilities. So all 4 of these forms of local government all provide water and or sewer. And I want to talk a little bit about that because one of the comments we get from some of the general public is, well, we don't want another layer of government. So people need to understand that a city is not another layer of government. It's a different form of local governance. Right now, since Silverdale's unincorporated, we don't have any direct representation with the exception of the county commissioners who are elected countywide. So what we're trying to do is get local control so our citizens can determine their own future.
Okay, so let me talk that one through. What it would do is there would be Silverdale city government, which then puts county government towards the back. Not the back per se, but just another level.
No, it's the same. Silverdale will be on par with all 4 of the other cities. What happens is then the local citizens have a city government instead of a county government.
That's
but
correct.
You don't get both. In other words, nothing that the city does the county trump or vice versa. It's just a local form of governance. And again, let me go back to the slide about the four forms of local government that I've selected here, and then we can talk a little bit about some of the others.
Okay.
The reason why I picked these 4 is because all 4 of them do utilities, but they can work together. And I'll give a couple of examples. The city of Port Orchard and the West Sound Utility District have been jointly operating the treatment plant for 20 years. So there's 2 forms of separate, distinct local governments that are all independently elected and overseen by the voters working together. Another good example might be the county government and the Silverdale Water District. We're doing a reclaimed water project with the county. Again, neither one trumps the other, but we're working jointly together. There's the Public Utility District and the Silverdale Water District. We're doing an intertie to move water from the wet west side of the Kitsap Peninsula to the dry north end through our district. We saved the PUD more than $5 million by running the water through our pipes. So there are 3 examples of where local governance work together. The last one I'll use is the CKF&R Fire District and the Silverdale Water District were both trying to build an administrative building. And this was well, a little bit before when I was serving. And we kept bumping into each other, trying to look at the same kind of dirt because obviously, and we thought, well,
why
don't we work
together?
Yeah, why not work together? So there's another example of local governance working together. But now CKF&R doesn't trump Silverdale Water District or vice versa.
Exactly.
So what I'm trying to explain here is it's another form of local governance which is designed for urban services.
The city of Silverdale per se would not start a water district. It would use Silverdale Water.
It can, yes, exactly.
It would use CK Fire and Rescue.
Right. What you do is you just annex back into the library district or the CKF&R. So you don't have to start your own fire district or library district or water district. Obviously use what's already there. It's obviously functioning very effectively.
Good.
So,
Police would be a topic, though.
Right. And what you'd probably end up doing is contracting back with the sheriff's department, at least for the first year. And I think that RCW set that up as a way to transition.
Excellent.
But it'll take, I'll talk a little bit about timeframes, maybe in our second segment, about the timeframes for setting up the city, because it's, obviously a complicated process. What I want to do is focus, again, staying with our topic of local governance, is talk about urban and rural services, because I think the distinction is really important for why should Silverdale incorporate. County government's designed for rural services or regional services, and the city is designed for urban services. So in that venue, what form of government provides the best service for what it's designed for? And I'll use 2 examples. One example is the county government. Obviously, the county government's going through some budgetary struggles. One of the reasons is that the Kitsap County governance is forced to provide urban services to, for instance, Central Kitsap UGA and Silverdale UGA. So now the county, which is
And
designed for...
UGA means?
Unincorporated Growth Management Area, UGA, Unincorporated
Urban Growth Area.
Yes, thank you, Urban Growth Area. And we could talk a little bit about that too, because we've got
I
some
just wanted
maps.
to specify and
Yeah,
not
because
use
when
the
we're not using
acronym.
buzzwords, I hate it
Yeah.
when people use buzzwords.
Yeah.
So what's happening is the county's being forced to provide urban services, but it's a rural form of governance. Bainbridge Island has the same problem. When Winslow was a city, you had the density in people per mile, the density of a city, that you could provide city services. But when the citizens chose to incorporate the entire island, 70–80% of that was rural. So now what's happening is the city is forced to provide urban services to a rural area. Again, so here's two local examples of where local government's being forced to provide services that form of government's not really designed for. So both are having budgetary struggles. And there's some other issues to that, obviously, but it helps kind of explain how they work.
Right.
And then the next slide talks about local governance, and there's obviously two forms. There's directly elected, and I've listed a whole bunch of them there, and there's some that I haven't even listed. So cities, counties, PUDs, school districts, fire districts, ports, and then you have another block of appointed or voluntary positions like the Kitsap Regional Governance, Community Councils, Economic Development Alliance, public facility districts, library districts. And these are forms of local government. Again, they're designed for specific purposes. The ports are designed for economic development and what have you. So when we're talking about representation for our citizens, we want direct representation. I mean, that's the foundation of our country. I mean, Thomas Jefferson, wanted to have government as close to the people as possible. So directly elected representatives is the foundation of our nation and our political system, and that's why the citizens of Silverdale want to have direct representation.
And having a county commissioner, citizens of Silverdale don't feel that's enough close representation.
Well, it's not
CK
direct.
commissioner.
Sure, it's not, because it's
It's
central
not
Kitsap.
Silverdale focused.
Right. I mean, if for instance, if the county commissioners were located within in other words, if North Kitsap commissioner was elected in North Kitsap, then or Central was elected in Central, you might say, okay, you have direct representation in that form, but you don't with the county commissioners because they're elected countywide. And I'll talk about just numbers. Bainbridge Island with 21,000 people have more voting impact on the county commissioners than the residents of the city of Silverdale, which only has 17,000. So just on sheer numbers, what happens is now Bainbridge Island has a bigger voice on what goes on in Silverdale than the people that live in Silverdale. So again, I kind of go back to my point that since they're elected countywide, it means all the cities have a voice in what goes on in Silverdale and everybody in the county. Simply 93% of those people that are voting on Silverdale issues don't live in Silverdale.
That's
And-
absolutely.
And it's a problem. So what you want to do is have a local form of governance, and that's city governance. That's what it's set up for. And that way then we can determine our own future and do the things that the city needs done.
Good. Let's talk about this code city, your concept of how the city will be organized, and then we're going to take a break, okay?
That'd be great.
Great. So let's talk about code city
Okay.
and council and manager form of government.
When you look at city government, there's several ways you can do it. What we did is, after a lot of study, is selected a manager or council manager form of governance. So it's not a strong mayor form of governance, for instance, like Port Orchard has. When
Bremerton.
Bremerton only. I think Bremerton has a council manager form of governance also.
No. Bremerton has a council mayor. We have a strong mayor, Patty Lent.
Okay.
She's the mayor.
Okay.
And
so
she is not a council appointed
You're
mayor.
right. You're correct. So what we found is, out of the last 17 cities that incorporated, they selected a council manager form of governance.
Right.
And there's a reason for that. It's the most nonpartisan, non-political. So you take the local politics out and you do the functions of the city. And the council will meet, maybe once or twice a month, and then direct the city manager to go repair that road or whatever the council directs them to do.
Sure.
And the city manager serves at will. So
right.
if
At the will of council.
correct, correct. So, and those would be a 7 elected council, and then one would be the titular head, or one would be appointed to be the mayor, but that person doesn't have any more authority than any of the other 6 council members.
Why 7 council?
You need either 5, 7, or 9.
I understand that.
And 5 is really not enough for this size city when we looked at it, and 9's too many. And so that's why we selected 7, and it seems to be kind of a functional default. You get a broad enough cross-section of your populace that you won't have one council person dominate the proceedings. You'll have a pretty good mix of your citizens, because 7, I mean, you have to get a pretty good consensus to get 4 out of 7 votes to get anything passed.
And Bremerton currently is looking at, they have 9 council, and they are looking at redistricting and having 7 council rather than 9. So.
Right, and they're elected by district, which is a little bit
Correct.
different. I mean, we're talking about 7 at large. So as long as you
7
live,
at large.
So as long as
Okay.
you live within the city boundaries, then you could
Okay.
run for a city council position.
Oh.
And then what it does is they're directly elected to the responsible to the voters. So
Right.
if you got council members that weren't adhering to the will of the citizens, they simply would.
What did you say the
replace them.
population of Silverdale would be?
17,000. So, and I've got a chart in there that talks a little bit about
Great.
population or whatever.
Well, let's take a break, because, man, we've got lots of information here. So we're going to take a short break, get reorganized, and keep going on the topic of Silverdale Incorporation. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Around Kitsap. The topic, Silverdale Incorporation. With me today, Marcus Hoffman. Marcus, let's continue, because we have
Sure.
lots of information
Lots
to
of
continue
information.
covering. You wanted to talk a little bit more about local governance?
Just quickly, all I'm going to talk about there is in this slide, what it does is it shows once Silverdale incorporates, then what happens is that section of the county government breaks off and is independent and stands alone, just like the other 4 cities. So that little slide
it.
goes to it.
Got
The
it.
maps are, I think, important. So I think if we take a quick break and jump to the maps, the first one talks about where the UGA areas are. So you
Urban growth area.
Thank you very much. So if you look at the map, you can see Dyes Inlet's down there in the bottom of the south, and obviously that waterfront's there. If you look, the boundary runs from kind of the intersection of Highway 3, Chico Way, all the way up along on Roundabout, which doesn't take into Apex Airport, and then Anderson Hill Road. You can see Olympic View, Westgate Road, and then you can see where Bangor is there, and then it goes across on Trigger, and then jumps over and jumps up to Mountain View Road up on the far north.
Oh, right. Okay.
Goes on the east side of Island Lake, and then comes on the west side of Central Valley, so we don't go up to Central Valley, and then Barker Creek's the southeastern border. So it gives you an idea of the UGA boundary. The next map, just kind of informational, is the boundary for the old incorporation effort. And you can see that the area, the UGA, then went all the way down to Rydale Road, and I think in their efforts they chopped off some of that area. Again, I don't know enough
That's
about
an old,
that.
yeah, old 1998.
The next map is the one that shows a comparison between the 05 and the 06 UGA boundaries. So the one that's on the right is the 05, and you can see when they studied for a year and a half, they added this big section down in Chico, and the main reason is because those people, when their septics were failing, couldn't by law hook up to the city sewer system or the county sewer system that runs right along Chico Way without being in the UGA. So that's why that area was proposed. When we met with the general public, we'd heard last cycle that the people in Island Lake didn't want to be in. So we met with those people, and I would say about 50% said, no, we don't really want to be in. 25% said, sure, we want to be in, and 25% said, we don't know enough. So we adjusted the boundary. You can see that section in red that's up on the north east side. We essentially adjusted the boundary there to chop it out. And when we met with the Chico Way area, a good percentage of those wanted to be in. When we had our first boundary review board meeting, there was a pretty organized group that showed up to that. We had probably 130, and a pretty strong majority said, oh, we don't want to be in. So what we did is we went back, and the next map will then show how we adjusted the boundaries on the south west side. And essentially, it's a little bit a little bit south of Newberry Hill Road, not quite to Kearney Road. And then, so that's our boundary. So that at least gives you an idea. Again, those maps are available online.
Online, excellent.
Either the Facebook page or the website or whatever.
So the next topic is the all-important money
Taxes,
piece.
you bet.
Taxes and how you're going to establish the city and what your budget's going to be.
Right. Taxes are always the red-hot issue because that's obviously, are my taxes going to go up? I mean, that's the generic question people ask when you start talking about forming a city.
Exactly.
If we can jump to the spreadsheet, what it'll do is it'll show you the revenues comparison for all four of the cities and the unincorporated Kitsap County area. Now, what I will tell you is this first block on the far left is Silverdale. So there's 17,000 people there. You see, if you go down that column, that the property tax amounts to about $3.1 million, and the sales tax is about 8.4. Giving the city revenues of about $11.5 million per year. On a per capita basis, on a per person basis, it's $681 per person. Now again, if you'll just slide along the bottom of that and look at all of the other four cities, City of Port Orchard's per capita is $405, Bremerton's $330, Paulsbo's $540, and Bainbridge Island is $446. And even if you look at the unincorporated area, with Silverdale taken out, is at $408. So you can see that the city is flush with money. And what I would say, again, kind of going back to the general public, who they elect will make a difference, but there's nothing in the numbers I see here that would encourage anybody to talk about raising taxes. It's simply unnecessary.
Yeah,
I mean, you've
unnecessary.
got way more money than any of the other cities, and so the city will be flush with money. And what I need to emphasize is that's money that the Silverdale people are already paying.
They're already paying. So this money would be then used to establish the city of Silverdale, and what the other side is, this is money then that the county would lose.
Right, but what happens is the responsibilities for providing those urban services that the county's now being forced to provide would go to the city. So you're taking the burden off the county's back for having to provide rural services, because again, county government's designed for rural, not urban. And so the city would take those responsibilities over. So it takes that weight and that task off the county commissioners and puts it on the city where it should be.
Roads, police, services,
Sure.
everything.
Sure.
We all know that Silverdale is the tax-rich area in our community with the mall and all the little malls around it. It is the retail hub of our community.
Sure,
And
it is. It is a commercial hub.
Yeah.
And if you look at the sales tax, what I need to explain is that sales tax, since the county doesn't collect sales tax with a City of Silverdale designator, what they're saying is the amount of sales tax they collect, Silverdale collects about 43 to 50% of the sales tax that the county as a whole collects. So we used, I'm thinking we used the higher number here, but even if you use a lower number, again, on a per capita basis, we're still quite flush for monies. So, I mean, all the impact, and again, you want to have Silverdale continue to be a business-friendly region, and obviously that's the way Silverdale's operated. And
You know,
way it
many
would.
people have said, it's amazing that Silverdale hasn't been a city.
What we find is when we're going knocking on doors at this point, and we're talking with registered voters, I'm surprised at the number of people go, well, we're not a city? Or why aren't we a city? So it's kind of a strange question to get, saying, and it's just, it's one of those things that just hasn't gotten handled up to this point.
Right, that's right. Keep going.
Sure, if you want to talk
The
about
next one is transition.
transition. So obviously going from where we are today to where we're going to be is going to take some while. This 1 to 2 year window for study, we've done that. We're now, we went through the fact-finding scenarios and filed a petition. So the Boundary Review Board got our second petition once we eliminated the area down on Chico. And the Boundary Review Board will then hold one more meeting after we turned in our signatures. We need to collect 10% of the registered voters to be able to get it on the ballot. And it'll be on the ballot in April or May of 2012.
2012.
So that signature gathering stage, we're doing that now, but I think when this airs, we should be pretty much wrapped up with our signature gathering. And then within 6 months, then you'll elect your city council. Once the city council is elected, then they have to go through writing codes, hiring a city manager, contracting and negotiating for services. So it's, there's a lot of work that goes between, today and between the time that the city actually is up and functioning. Take about a year, year and a half.
Let's go through that one more time. Signatures being collected.
Correct.
Election next spring, 2012.
Yeah, April, May.
After the election, if it's a yay vote, it's going to take about 6 months to actually...
Yeah, 3 to 6 months, because you'll then elect your council members. And, so then once you've elected your council members, then once they are sworn in, then they'll start writing codes, hiring a city manager, doing all the transitional
looking
things.
for a place to call City Hall.
Right, but there's lots of facilities.
There's a lot of buildings. Right.
When I look at what the challenge is going to be for the new city governments, it's actually pretty exciting. I mean, there's a lot of things that'll get put together that, finally the citizens will have a say in their own future.
It's exciting. It is exciting. Hiring a city manager would be huge. But first of all, if the election is a yay election next spring, within 6 months there's another election to elect the city council folks.
Might be 2 if you had primaries. So if you had, let's say you have 7 council members, let's say that there's a whole bunch of people that want to run for council, so you'd have a primary runoff and then get your top 2 then would go for your general election for the city council. And obviously those council positions would have to be split so that you didn't have them all fall on the same election cycle. So you're going to have one that's going to serve for 1 year, one's going to serve for 2 years. You're going to split that 7 up so that that when the normal election cycle comes around once the city's formed, you're not replacing your entire board. You're only replacing a portion of them.
Sure. And 7 council positions is what you're looking at this point.
Correct, and those are nonpartisan, non-professional. So I mean, you want your average citizen to be your council, and then that gives a real heartbeat of your city, and then helps direct the city manager into doing the tasks that you want the city to do.
Wow, we've packed a lot of information in 28 minutes. The topic is Silverdale Incorporation. Go to their website, especially if you live within the boundaries of the maps you had seen today. And if you want to see those maps and really make sure you are either in or out of that Silverdale UGA, go to Silverdale Inc., silverdaleiNC.com. They're also Incorporate Silverdale on Facebook. Email is unitesilverdale@gmail.com. And you can find Marcus at Reed Realty. And he's very available to answer questions. Is there a regular meeting of Unite Silverdale? Are you folks meeting on a monthly basis?
We actually have been meeting on almost a weekly basis for about the last 6 months. But what I want to talk about, because we now have a transition when this airs in December, you're going to have a lot of community groups that have a lot of questions. And again, I go back to, if people don't have their questions answered, they'll vote no. If people don't know, they'll vote no. So between now and elections, we'll be presenting a lot of presentations. What I've encouraged people is, if your group has an affiliation with Silverdale, and it doesn't mean that everybody has to live in Silverdale. It could be the PTA group, it could be the motorcycle group, the bowling league, your homeowners association. It doesn't really matter what the group is, as long as the interest is in Silverdale. Because a lot of business owners own businesses in Silverdale but may not live within the city boundaries. So what we're talking to is all those groups. We want them to contact us and say, we'd like a presentation, and then we'll come and make a presentation. It takes about 15 minutes, and then 10-15 minutes for questions or whatever. So within half an hour, we should be able to answer a lot of the questions and get the information out. And so that's what we'll be doing for the next 6 months, is doing a lot of public outreach.
Excellent. Well, good luck.
Oh yeah, it's going to be great.
You're very excited and you're very happy about this, and it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and it's been a lot of work. I mean, really, fun. I'll go back and talk about our committee members just quickly. So
we're going to wrap up. Okay. So we want to thank all those committee members. Thank you so much for your service. And if you want information on Unite Silverdale, again, silverdaleiNC.com. Thanks for joining us on Around Kitsap, and thank you, Marcus, for coming in. We'll see you next time.